Welcome to Tech Blueprint, a window that lets you know the latest technology news in the world. Chip inventory is sufficient. The United States no longer provides cores. Chinese companies reveal that Nvidia has run out of options. The sensitivity of Chinese companies to changes in the international market is indeed commendable. Even before the United States officially imposed restrictions on Nvidia chips, domestic companies that cooperated with Nvidia began to actively replenish their inventory and purchase tens of thousands of Nvidia H100 and A100 chips. As expected, the United States began to impose strict export controls on these chips. The subsequent A800 series chips did not escape the same fate. The export restrictions on advanced chips have caused problems for some Chinese companies, but those that have pre-stocked have not been greatly affected and have stated that these stocks are sufficient to meet demand. However, this is not a long-term solution after all, and considering the rapid development of artificial intelligence technology in the future, these chips alone cannot ensure competitive advantages in the field of artificial intelligence in the future. At this time, Chinese companies began to clarify their positions. According to the Register, Baidu recently told investors that Baidu may not be able to obtain advanced GPU chips due to possible export controls by the United States in the future. However, the efficient internal software stack gives Baidu an advantage over its competitors even with simpler processors. This means that even if Baidu cannot obtain high-performance chips from Nvidia in the future, it can use other simpler processors to meet the demand. This is consistent with the growing domestic demand for AI chips and the strategy of several domestic chip manufacturers to use domestic chips as substitutes. In other words, it is time for domestic chips to be replaced. However, is Nvidia's strategy of actively supplying chips to the Chinese market and releasing special editions really no longer aimed at opening up the Chinese market? In theory, it is impossible for Nvidia to achieve a new supply breakthrough. On the one hand, it is difficult for the company to change the status quo of the dedicated chip market. On the other hand, it is also impossible to convince the US government to lift export restrictions on high-end chips. This is especially true when major US chip manufacturers unanimously oppose further tightening regulations on the US semiconductor industry. Domestic chip substitution is also a general trend, which means that domestic chips can meet the AI chip needs of domestic enterprises to a certain extent, so there is no need to pursue advanced technology. In this case, Nvidia is caught in a dilemma. But when Nvidia tried to take action, it did not formulate any strategy. As we all know, the domestic market has a huge demand for advanced AI chips. If Nvidia can provide more advanced chips, it will no longer have to rely solely on domestic alternatives. However, if export controls are imposed, how can Nvidia supply advanced chips? The US semiconductor industry is closely watching Nvidia's actions, and the company has no chance of circumventing export controls. Seagate's past experience of shipping to blacklisted Chinese companies is an example. In addition to the fact that there are some loopholes in the export control system itself, which may face subsequent investigations and fines, it is also very likely that these shipments will be exposed. It is worth noting that in addition to Seagate, Applied Materials, an American company, has also been involved in secret shipments. The company has shipped hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment and is currently facing an investigation by the United States. Considering Seagate's past experience with fines, the reduction from $600 million to $300 million in 5 years may indicate that the United States is not as strict with fines as imagined. This may also be a reason for a similar situation to occur again after the Seagate case. If Nvidia is willing to increase supply in this way, they are certainly capable of doing it. They can also make profits far higher than the fines while occupying the huge Chinese market, without having to go through the trouble of developing chips that meet the requirements, so as not to end up being unusable. After all, the A800 chip is produced in such large quantities that they will not only have to bear the burden of the new regulations, but also find other supply routes. Nvidia has come this far, why not try to ensure supply? They may have concerns, but Nvidia is not at the point of desperation at the moment. The key question is whether they are willing to take the risk. Chinese companies announced that they have sufficient inventory of chips to reduce their dependence on the United States. Nvidia chips are restricted, and Chinese companies are actively preparing for them. Baidu and other companies have made up for the chip shortage through software optimization, and domestic chip substitution has become a trend. Nvidia faces a dilemma and needs to decide whether to take the risk of circumventing export controls.